She wanted me to beg. I could see it in the way Rebecca tilted her head during the dinner party, that practice angle she'd perfected over 14 years of marriage. The Hendersons sat across from us, Tom nursing his bourbon, Linda pretending not to notice the tension radiating from our side of the table like heat from asphalt in August. David works in facilities management, Rebecca said, her voice carrying that particular lilt she reserved for explaining my job to people she wanted to impress. It's very hands-on. Tom nodded politely. He owned 3 car dealerships. Linda ran a boutique PR firm. I managed HVAC systems, plumbing emergencies, and contractor schedules for a mid-size office complex downtown. The difference in our tax brackets hung in the air like cigarette smoke. Someone's got to keep the toilets running, I said, raising my water glass. Rebecca's smile tightened at the corners. She'd asked me not to be self-deprecating tonight. I'd agreed, then done it anyway. Small rebellions were all I had left. The conversation drifted to vacation homes and investment properties. I watched my wife's hands as she gestured, animated in a way they never were at home anymore. Her wedding ring caught the candlelight. I'd saved for 6 months to buy that ring. She'd upgraded it herself 3 years ago. David, you're quiet tonight, Linda said, probably trying to be kind. Just listening, I replied. Learning about markets I'll never participate in. Rebecca's heel found my shin under the table. Not hard enough to make me flinch, just enough to remind me of my place. I smiled at her. She smiled back. The Hendersons saw a couple sharing a private moment. They had no idea they were watching a marriage dissolve in real time. The evening ended with promises to do this again soon, promises everyone knew were lies. In the car, Rebecca checked her phone 3 times before we left the parking lot. Her thumbs moved fast, typing something that made her smile. You embarrassed me tonight, she said. I pulled onto the highway. I stated facts about my profession. You made yourself small, which makes me look small by association. God forbid. She turned to face me, her expression sharp in the dashboard lights. What's that supposed to mean? Nothing. I'm tired. You're always tired lately. I was. The kind of tired that sleep doesn't fix. The kind that settles into your bones when you realize the person next to you stopped seeing you as a person somewhere along the way. You became a function, a paycheck, a name on documents. We drove the rest of the way in silence. At home, Rebecca went straight to the bedroom. I heard the shower start, running longer than usual. 45 minutes. I knew because I timed it, sitting in the kitchen with a beer I wasn't drinking, watching the second hand circle the clock on the wall. When she emerged, she smelled like lavender and something else, something floral I didn't recognize. New perfume, maybe? Or maybe I just stopped paying attention to the details that used to matter. I'm going to bed, she announced. It was 9:47 p.m. She used to stay up until midnight reading terrible romance novels and laughing at the ridiculous parts. Now she went to bed early and woke up earlier, checking her phone before her eyes were fully open. I stayed in the kitchen until I heard her breathing even out through the bedroom door. Then I pulled out my laptop and started looking at our bank statements, not searching for anything specific. Just looking. Numbers told stories if you paid attention. Our joint account showed regular deposits from both our paychecks. Rebecca made more than me, a fact she'd mentioned exactly 17 times in the past 6 months. I'd counted. Her personal account, the one she'd opened 2 years ago for financial independence, showed monthly transfers I couldn't track. Not large amounts, just steady. The credit card statement showed charges at restaurants I'd never been to, coffee shops on the other side of town from her office, a hotel in the city center. She'd explained that one already. A work conference, last-minute booking, the company would reimburse her. I closed the laptop. Small inconsistencies, individually meaningless. Collectively, they formed a pattern, like pixels resolving into an image when you stepped back far enough. 3 days later, she came home late with an announcement. We need to talk about the house, Rebecca said, setting her purse on the counter with more force than necessary. I looked up from the contractor estimates I'd been reviewing. The building's boiler system needed replacing before winter. What about it? I want it in my name, just mine. I set down my pen slowly. The house we bought together. The house I can actually afford on my own if something happens. She crossed her arms. You know your income isn't stable. If you lost your job, we'd be underwater in 3 months. I've had the same job for 11 years. That's not security. That's inertia. She moved to the refrigerator, poured herself wine she didn't offer to share. I've talked to a lawyer. It's simple. Just sign a quitclaim deed. Everything stays the same, but the asset is protected. Protected from what? From uncertainty. I watched her drink. She wouldn't meet my eyes. When did you talk to a lawyer? Last week. David, this isn't personal, it's practical. Everything with Rebecca had become practical. Love had terms and conditions now. Marriage was asset management. Let me think about it, I said. Her jaw tightened. There's nothing to think about. Either you trust me or you don't. The manipulation was almost beautiful in its efficiency. Frame my hesitation as betrayal. Make protection feel like paranoia. I'd fallen for this move before, apologizing for feelings she'd taught me to doubt. Not this time. I said I'll think about it. She slammed the wineglass down hard enough that I thought it might break. Fine, think fast. Because if you can't see this from my perspective, maybe we have bigger problems than real estate. She left the room. I heard the bedroom door close, lock. She'd started locking it 2 months ago, for privacy, she'd said. I sat at the kitchen table for a long time, listening to the house settle around me. The furnace kicked on at 10:15 p.m., right on schedule. I'd set that thermostat myself. I knew every sound this building made, every creak and groan. I knew which floorboard in the hallway squeaked, which window didn't seal properly, where the water pressure dropped when 2 faucets ran simultaneously. I knew this house better than I knew my wife anymore, but I was starting to learn her patterns too. The next morning, Rebecca left for work without saying goodbye. I waited until her car disappeared around the corner, then made a phone call to a number I'd found 3 weeks ago and hadn't had the courage to dial. Cornerstone Investigations, a woman's voice answered. I need to speak with someone about a consultation, I said. What type of case? I looked at the photo on our mantel. Rebecca and me on our wedding day, younger and stupider and convinced we'd figured something out that everyone else had missed. Domestic, I said. Surveillance. Hold, please. Classical music filled the line. Mozart, I think? I don't know classical music. Rebecca did. She'd tried to educate me once, early in our marriage, playing symphonies while we cooked dinner together. I couldn't tell the difference between composers. She'd laughed and kissed my cheek and said it didn't matter. It mattered now, apparently. One more way I'd failed to evolve into whoever she needed me to be. This is James Corrigan, a man's voice said. You're looking for surveillance? Maybe. I don't know. I think my wife is... The words stuck. Saying them out loud made them real. Take your time, Corrigan said. His voice was neutral, practiced at this conversation. She's acting different, staying out late. New passwords on her phone. Wants me to sign over the house. I was rambling. Maybe I'm paranoid. Maybe you're paying attention, Corrigan said. Here's what I tell everyone. You already know. Your gut knows. You're calling me for confirmation, not information. That landed like a punch. What does surveillance cost? I asked. Depends on duration and complexity. Basic package is 3 weeks, rotating coverage. Enough to establish patterns without breaking your bank. $4,000. $4,000. That was most of my savings account. The one Rebecca didn't know about, buried in a credit union across town in my name only. Emergency money. Looks like the emergency had arrived. If I hire you, what exactly are you looking for? I asked. Routine inconsistencies. Where she goes versus where she says she's going, who she meets, duration of meetings. We document times, locations, license plates, everything admissible in court if it comes to that. And if there's nothing? Then you get peace of mind and a detailed record of her completely normal behavior, Corrigan said. Either way, you'll know. I thought about Rebecca's hand under the table at the Hendersons, delivering that sharp little kick to my shin, the casual cruelty of it, the assumption I'd just take it. When can you start? I asked. We met 2 days later at a diner 40 minutes outside the city. Corrigan looked exactly like I'd imagined. Mid-50s, forgettable face, wearing khakis and a polo shirt that could belong to any middle-aged man in America. Perfect for blending in. First rule, he said, sliding a contract across the booth. You don't change your behavior, not one bit. You don't confront her, don't ask leading questions, don't check her phone. You become invisible. Can you do that? I'd been invisible in my own marriage for 2 years. Yeah, I said. I can do that. Second rule, this might not be what you think, might be a work thing, a friend thing, might be completely innocent. Do you believe that? Corrigan's expression didn't change. I believe evidence, nothing else. I signed the contract, paid half upfront in cash. Corrigan gave me a burner phone with his number programmed in and nothing else. I'll check in every 3 days, he said. Don't call me unless it's an emergency. Don't ask for updates. I'll contact you when there's something to report. How will I know if you're actually working? He showed me his phone, a tracking app with a red dot moving through the city. That's your wife's car. I installed a GPS unit yesterday. She had lunch at Bistro 51, shopping at the plaza, currently heading east toward downtown. I stared at the dot. That's her office. I know. Corrigan pocketed his phone. Go home, David. Live your life. Let me do my job. I drove back to an empty house and did exactly what he said. Routine, normal, invisible. Rebecca came home at 7:30 p.m. carrying takeout Thai food. She actually smiled at me. I was thinking, she said, unpacking containers on the counter. Maybe I came on too strong about the house thing. We can table it for now. Okay, I said. Okay? She looked surprised. That's it? What do you want me to say? I don't know. I expected more resistance. She handed me a fork. You've been weird lately. Work stress, I lied. The boiler replacement is over budget. She accepted this without question. My job was boring enough that details didn't matter. She ate her pad thai scrolling through her phone. I ate mine watching her, looking for tells, signs, anything I'd missed. Her phone buzzed. She glanced at it, smiled slightly, set it face down. Who was that? The question slipped out before I could stop it. Work, she said automatically. Then her eyes sharpened. Why? No reason. You've never asked before. I'm asking now. Something shifted in her expression. Calculation. It was Vanessa from accounting. She sent a meme about our boss. Maybe that was true. Maybe it wasn't. I nodded and returned to my food. We spent the evening in separate rooms. Her in the bedroom with the door closed, me in the living room pretending to watch television. Around 10 p.m., I heard the shower start again. Long. 40 minutes this time. When she came out, she was wearing new pajamas. Silk. I didn't comment. 3 days passed, then 5. The burner phone stayed silent. I went to work, managed my building's endless small emergencies, came home to a wife who was suddenly suspiciously pleasant. She cooked dinner twice, asked about my day, laughed at things that weren't funny. She was managing me, softening me up. I recognized the technique because I'd seen contractors do it before demanding budget increases. On day 7, the burner phone buzzed. I was at work, standing in the mechanical room watching a new compressor installation. I stepped outside into the parking lot to check the message. Thursday, 6 p.m., park in 5th, come alone. That was tomorrow. I deleted the message and went back inside. The compressor roared to life, perfectly calibrated. Everything in my professional life worked exactly as it should. Clean, predictable, fixable. My personal life was the opposite. That night, Rebecca announced she had drinks with coworkers Thursday evening. Celebrating Vanessa's promotion, she said, I'll be home late. How late? 10, maybe, 11? Have fun, I said. She studied my face, looking for something. Whatever she wanted to find, she didn't. Thanks, she said finally. Thursday came. I left work at 5:30 p.m. and drove to park in 5th. The diner was the same one we'd met at before. Corrigan sat in the back booth with a manila folder in front of him. I slid into the seat across from him. Coffee? He asked. Information? He opened the folder. Inside were photographs. Rebecca's car outside a downtown condo building. Rebecca entering the building. Rebecca exiting 3 hours later. A man walking her to her car. I'd never seen him before. He was younger than me, taller, better haircut. The kind of guy who wore expensive watches and smiled like the world owed him everything. Who is he? I asked. Trevor Nichols, commercial real estate developer, divorced, lives in Unit 12C where these photos were taken. Corrigan showed me more pictures. They've met 7 times in the past 3 weeks. Always the same pattern. She arrives around 6:15 p.m., leaves between 9:30 and 10 p.m. My hands were remarkably steady considering my entire life was in that folder. Have you seen them? I couldn't finish the sentence. I can't enter the building, Corrigan said, but I've documented the pattern. Duration, frequency, that's what matters in court. Court, I repeated. You're going to need a lawyer, Corrigan said. A good one. I can recommend someone. I looked at the photos again. Rebecca smiling at Trevor. Trevor's hand on her lower back. The casual intimacy of it. Keep going, I said. I need more. David, 2 more weeks. Document everything. Corrigan studied me. What are you planning? Nothing violent, nothing illegal. I met his eyes. I just need to be sure, completely sure. He nodded slowly. 2 more weeks, but you pay up front. I transferred the remaining money that night from my hidden account. Every dollar I'd saved, every emergency fund, all of it went to a man following my wife around town, photographing her collapse of our marriage. Best money I'd ever spent. Rebecca came home at 10:47 p.m., smelling like expensive cologne that wasn't mine. She kissed my cheek, told me about Vanessa's promotion party, went to bed. I sat in the kitchen until 2 a.m., staring at nothing. The burner phone buzzed again 2 weeks later. "We need to meet. Important." Corrigan looked tired when I slid into the booth. He'd aged in the 3 weeks since I'd hired him, or maybe I was just seeing him clearly for the first time. This was a man who spent his days documenting the worst of human nature. It left marks. "I've got everything," he said, pushing a thick folder across the table. "More than enough." I didn't open it. "Tell me." "Your wife meets Trevor Nichols an average of 3 times per week. Always his condo. Duration ranges from 2 to 5 hours. She's careful about her car, parks 2 blocks away, walks. They have lunch together Tuesdays at a place called Meridian. He pays. Last Thursday they drove to Westwood Heights, stayed at the Grandview Hotel for 6 hours. The Grandview. We'd stayed there for our anniversary 4 years ago. I'd surprised her with a weekend package. She'd cried happy tears. "They think they're being discreet," Corrigan continued. "They're not. Nichols is sloppy, arrogant. He valet parks his Porsche with your wife in the passenger seat. They hold hands in public." "In public?" I repeated. "Upscale places where they think nobody knows them. But somebody always knows somebody." He tapped the folder. "I've got witness statements from a bartender, 2 servers, the hotel desk clerk, all willing to testify if needed, plus photos, timeline documentation, GPS tracking data." I finally opened the folder. More pictures. Rebecca and Trevor at a wine bar. Rebecca and Trevor walking through a park. Rebecca and Trevor in his car, her hand on his thigh. "There's something else," Corrigan said carefully. "About 2 weeks ago, your wife met with a divorce attorney, Patricia Kensington. She's expensive, specializes in high asset cases. We don't have high assets. You have the house, and apparently she thinks she can get it plus alimony." He showed me another photo. Rebecca entering a law office downtown. She was there for 90 minutes. When she left, she made a call to Nichols. They met at his place an hour later. The pieces assembled themselves. Rebecca wasn't just having an affair. She was planning an exit strategy. Get the house in her name first through manipulation. When that failed, go nuclear with divorce. Take everything. Move on to Trevor Nichols and his Porsche and his downtown condo. I was the obstacle to be managed. "What do you want to do?" Corrigan asked. "I need a lawyer," I said. "The one you mentioned." "Richard Oakes. He's a shark. Expensive, but worth it." Corrigan scribbled a number on a napkin. "Tell him I sent you. He'll take the case." I pocketed the napkin. "What else?" "What do you mean?" "You said there was more. I can see it on your face." Corrigan sighed. "Nichols isn't the first." The floor dropped out from under me. "How many?" "I found evidence of at least 1 previous relationship. Maybe 2. Your wife is careful, but she has patterns. Same behavioral tells. I can't prove the others, but the circumstantial evidence is strong." He paused. "David, this has been going on longer than you think." I sat back, absorbing this. 2 years of feeling crazy. 2 years of being told I was paranoid, insecure, imagining things. Gaslighted into doubting my own perception of reality. I wasn't crazy. I was right. "Thank you," I said. "Don't thank me yet," Corrigan replied. "This is the easy part. What comes next is harder." I met Richard Oakes the following afternoon in an office that smelled like old leather and older money. He was 60, gray-haired, wearing a suit that cost more than my monthly mortgage payment. "Corrigan sent me the preliminary file," Oakes said, gesturing to a chair. "You've got a strong case. Clear evidence of infidelity, financial deception, and premeditated asset concealment. What can I get?" "Depends on what you want. Revenge or resolution?" "What's the difference?" Oakes smiled thinly. "Resolution is a fair split. You each walk away with half. Revenge is making her regret ever crossing you. It costs more, takes longer, and requires you to be patient while I dismantle her narrative piece by piece." "Revenge," I said without hesitation. "Then we need to be strategic. Your wife made a mistake going to Patricia Kensington. Kensington's expensive and aggressive, but she relies on emotional manipulation in court. She'll paint you as controlling, financially unreliable, possibly even abusive if she thinks it'll work." "I've never touched Rebecca." "I know, but Kensington will imply it anyway. So we need to be airtight. Document everything, record everything, keep a journal. Never, under any circumstances, confront your wife or her boyfriend." "What about the house?" Oakes leaned forward. "Here's what we're going to do. You're going to agree to sign over the house." I stared at him. "What?" You're going to tell your wife you'll sign the quitclaim deed, string her along, keep her confident. Meanwhile, I'll file divorce papers preemptively. We'll serve her the same day she thinks she's getting the house. Psychological warfare. She'll fight back. Of course she will. And when she does, we bury her with evidence. Infidelity, asset concealment, fraud, if we're lucky. He opened a drawer and pulled out a stack of legal documents. I've already drafted the papers. All I need is your signature and permission to proceed. I signed. One more thing, Oakes said. What about Nichols? What about him? Some clients want to go after the affair partner. Civil suit, harassment, public exposure. It's messy and usually pointless, but it's an option. I thought about Trevor Nichols and his Porsche and his expensive watch and the way he smiled in those photographs like he'd won something. Not yet, I said. Smart. Focus on one battle at a time. Oakes stood, extending his hand. Go home. Be normal. Act like nothing's changed. In 2 weeks, everything changes. I shook his hand and left. The next 13 days were the strangest of my life. I went to work, managed contractors, fixed broken boilers, came home to a wife who was suddenly inexplicably affectionate. Rebecca cooked my favorite meals, suggested we watch movies together, asked about my day with what almost passed for genuine interest. She was working me, softening me up for the house transfer. I played along, smiled at the right times, laughed at her jokes, made love to her once, which felt like betrayal of myself but necessary for the performance. Afterward, she fell asleep with her head on my chest. I stared at the ceiling, feeling nothing. Corrigan sent updates via the burner phone. Rebecca met Nichols 4 times during those 2 weeks. They were getting careless, brazen. Good. Overconfidence was a gift. On day 12, Rebecca brought it up again. I've been thinking about the house, she said over breakfast. Did you reconsider? I pretended to think about it. What exactly does signing over mean? For me? You'd still live here. Nothing changes day to day. It just protects us if something happens to you. If something happens to me, you mean? That's not... She stopped, recalibrated. David, I'm trying to protect our future. Our future, I repeated. Together? Of course together. She reached across the table, took my hand. Her skin was soft, warm, lying. I love you. This is just paperwork. I squeezed her hand gently. Okay? Okay? I'll sign. Just tell me when and where. The relief on her face was almost beautiful. She'd won, or so she thought. I'll have the papers drawn up, she said quickly. Maybe next week? We can go to a notary together. Sure, I said. Whatever you need. She kissed me, bright and happy and convinced she'd played me perfectly. That night, I texted Oakes. She took the bait. How long? His reply came fast. 3 days. Be ready. I spent those 3 days organizing. I opened a new bank account at a different institution and transferred my remaining money there. Changed passwords on my personal email, social media, everything. Gathered important documents. Birth certificate, passport, social security card, and stored them in a safe deposit box at the bank. I wasn't running. I was fortifying. At work, I told my supervisor I might need to take personal time soon. Family emergency, I said vaguely. He didn't ask questions. I called my brother in Cincinnati. We hadn't spoken in 6 months. I need you to know something, I said. Rebecca and I are getting divorced. It's going to be ugly. If she calls you, don't believe anything she says. What happened? He asked. I'll tell you later. Just trust me. I trust you, he said immediately. Whatever you need. Family. Blood. The only reliable constant. On day 3, Rebecca came home carrying takeout sushi and smiling wider than I'd seen in months. Great news, she announced. The papers are ready. We can sign tomorrow afternoon. I've got a notary scheduled at 4 p.m. Perfect, I said. We ate dinner making small talk about nothing that mattered. She was giddy, almost drunk on anticipated victory. I was calm, flat, empty. At 9 p.m., my phone buzzed. Oakes. Process server will arrive at 4:15 p.m. tomorrow. Timing is critical. Can you confirm she'll be home? I texted back. Confirmed. She'll be here. That night, I barely slept. Not from nerves. From anticipation. Rebecca woke up early, humming while she got ready for work. She kissed me goodbye at the door, lingering. See you at 4, she said. See you then. She drove away. I watched until her car disappeared, then called Oakes. Today's the day, I said. Remember, he replied. Stay calm. Don't engage emotionally. Let her react. We're documenting everything. I know. David, this is going to hurt. Even if you're prepared, it's going to hurt. Are you ready? I thought about Rebecca's hand on Trevor Nichols' thigh in those photographs. Her lies. Her manipulation. The systematic way she'd tried to erase me from my own life. I'm ready, I said. The day crawled by. I took the afternoon off, drove home, sat in the kitchen with a cup of coffee I didn't drink, waiting. At 3:47 p.m., Rebecca's car pulled into the driveway. She came in carrying a folder and that same bright smile. Right on time, she said. The notary should be here in 10 minutes. Great, I said. She set the folder on the table. I just need you to sign here, here, and here. She pointed to highlighted sections. Then we're done. I looked at the quitclaim deed. My name. Her name. The legal language transferring ownership of our house solely to her. Before I sign, I said carefully, I need to get something from my office. Her smile faltered slightly. What? Just some documents. Give me 1 second. I walked to the spare bedroom I used as an office and returned with my own folder, thicker than hers, heavier with the weight of truth. What's that? Rebecca asked. Insurance, I said. If I'm signing over the house, I want to make sure we're on the same page about everything. David, we don't need... The doorbell rang. That's probably the notary, Rebecca said, moving toward the door. I'll get it, I said. I opened the door. A woman in a professional suit stood there holding a clipboard. Not a notary. Rebecca Townsend? She asked. Inside, I said, stepping aside. Rebecca appeared in the entryway, confused. Can I help you? The woman handed her an envelope. You've been served. Have a nice day. She turned and walked back to her car. Rebecca stood frozen, holding the envelope like it might explode. What is this? Open it, I said. Her hands shook as she tore it open. I watched her face as she read. Confusion, disbelief, dawning horror. Divorce papers, she whispered. You filed for divorce? 3 weeks ago, I said. Keep reading. She flipped through the pages. The evidence section, photos, timeline, witness statements, all of it. You hired someone to follow me, she breathed. You made it easy, I said. You got sloppy. Her eyes snapped to mine, all pretense of sweetness gone. You spying? Paranoid? The Grandview Hotel, I interrupted. Really, Rebecca? Our anniversary hotel? She went pale. I pulled photos from my folder, spread them on the table next to her quitclaim deed. Trevor Nichols, commercial real estate developer. Drives a Porsche, lives downtown. You've been seeing him for 3 months. Before that, someone else. Before that, who knows? I can explain. Don't. I kept my voice level. Calm. I have 90 hours of surveillance footage, 17 witness statements, bank records showing your secret account, GPS tracking, credit card receipts. I have everything. She stared at the evidence, at her lies made material. David, you wanted me to sign over the house, I continued. Remove the one asset I had, then divorce me from a position of strength. Take everything. Move on to Trevor like I never existed. That's not... Your lawyer is Patricia Kensington. You met with her 2 weeks ago. Did she tell you that infidelity affects asset division in this state? Did she mention that fraud during marriage proceedings can result in criminal charges? Rebecca's legs gave out. She sat heavily in the kitchen chair, still holding the divorce papers. Here's what's going to happen, I said. My lawyer is better than yours. My evidence is airtight. You're going to fight this because that's who you are, and you're going to lose. You'll lose the house. You'll lose alimony. You'll be lucky to walk away with half of nothing. You can't do this, she whispered. I already did. I pointed at the papers. Sign those or don't. Either way, this marriage is over. She looked up at me with eyes that finally saw me, not as a function, not as an obstacle, as a threat. When did you become this person? She asked. When you stopped seeing me as one, I replied. The silence stretched between us like broken glass. Then she stood abruptly, grabbed her purse, and walked toward the door. Where are you going? I asked. She turned back, and her face had transformed into something cold and calculating. To my lawyer. This isn't over. It is, I said. You just don't know it yet. She slammed the door hard enough to rattle the windows. I stood in the kitchen, surrounded by evidence of my wife's betrayal, and felt absolutely nothing. No satisfaction, no pain, just the cold, clear certainty that I'd made the right choice. My phone buzzed. Oaks, how'd it go? Perfect, I texted back. Good. Now the real work begins. She'll try to fight dirty. Be prepared. I looked at the quitclaim deed still sitting on the table, unsigned, the document that would have erased me from my own home. I took a photo of it and texted it to Oakes with a message. Evidence of attempted fraud. His reply, beautiful. File this with the court tomorrow. I sat at the kitchen table until dark, watching the room fade into shadows. This house that I'd bought, that I'd maintained, that I'd poured myself into while my wife poured herself into someone else. Well, I wasn't losing it. Not without a fight. Trevor Nichols wasn't hard to find. His real estate development company had its office on 7th Street in a glass tower that probably cost more than my entire neighborhood. His face smiled from the company website, confident, expensive, completely unaware that his world was about to collapse. I didn't plan to confront him. That would have been stupid, possibly illegal, definitely counterproductive to the divorce case. But I wanted to see him, understand who he was, what Rebecca saw in him that she couldn't find in 14 years with me. I sat in my truck across from his building during my lunch break, watching well-dressed people flow in and out. Nichols emerged at 1:17 p.m., talking on his phone, laughing at something. He wore a charcoal suit that moved like water. Probably Italian. Probably cost what I made in a month. He walked to a lunch spot 3 blocks away. Meridian, the same restaurant Corrigan had documented. I followed at a distance, keeping half a block between us. The hostess greeted him by name. Mr. Nichols, your usual table? Actually, I'm meeting someone, he said, checking his phone. She'll be here soon. I kept walking, circling the block. When I came back around, I saw Rebecca through the window. She'd arrived. They sat together in a booth, her hand covering his on the table. This was 48 hours after being served divorce papers. She'd gone straight to him. I took a photo with my phone, not for court. Oakes had better evidence. For myself. A reminder that I wasn't wrong, wasn't crazy, wasn't imagining the systematic destruction of my marriage. My phone rang. Work. A pipe had burst in the east wing. I drove back, spent 3 hours dealing with water damage and angry tenants and contractor estimates, and forgot about Trevor Nichols. But he didn't forget about me. 2 days later, a black Porsche pulled up to my building while I was reviewing HVAC maintenance schedules in the parking lot. The driver's window rolled down. You David Townsend? Trevor Nichols asked. I looked up slowly. In person, he was taller than the photos suggested. Gym fit. The kind of confidence that came from never being told no. That's me, I said. He climbed out of the Porsche, which was unnecessary and theatrical. Territorial display. We should talk. About? Rebecca. He smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. Look, man, I know this situation is awkward. Awkward, I repeated. But we're all adults here. Rebecca and I were serious. She's going to file for divorce anyway, so maybe we can make this easier for everyone. How considerate of you. I'm just saying, fighting over assets and dragging this through court doesn't help anyone. You seem like a reasonable guy. I set down my clipboard. Do I? Yeah. Rebecca says you're practical, level-headed. He leaned against his car. So here's what I'm thinking. You sign whatever paperwork she needs. Clean break. She gets the house, you get your freedom. Everyone moves on. The audacity was almost impressive. He'd driven to my workplace to negotiate my surrender on behalf of the woman he'd been sleeping with while she was still married to me. And you get Rebecca, I said. We're in love, he said simply. Have been for months. This, he gestured vaguely. Whatever you two had, it was already over. Was it? Come on, dude. She told me everything. The marriage is over. You knew it. She knew it. This is just official confirmation. I studied him. The expensive watch, the perfect haircut, the entitled smirk of someone who'd never faced real consequences. How much did she tell you? I asked. Enough. That you're controlling, financially unstable, that she's scared. I laughed. Couldn't help it. Scared of me? Trevor's expression shifted. Yeah. She says you've been acting erratic since she asked for the divorce. She asked for the divorce, I repeated. That's the story? It's not a story, I filed 3 weeks ago, I interrupted. She was served 48 hours ago. Your timeline's off. He blinked, recalculating. Did she mention the surveillance? I continued. The 90 hours of footage documenting your affair, the witness statements, the hotel receipts? Trevor's confidence cracked slightly. That's illegal. You can't. Private investigators are perfectly legal. So is GPS tracking a vehicle I co-own. So is photographing 2 people in public spaces. I picked up my clipboard again. My lawyer thought your Porsche was especially helpful. Valet parking at the Grandview with another man's wife in the passenger seat. Very discreet. Look, whatever game you're playing, this isn't a game. This is me dismantling the narrative Rebecca fed you. I met his eyes. She told you I'm controlling and unstable because that's what her divorce lawyer told her to say. She's building a case. And you, Trevor, are collateral damage. That's not true. No? When was the last time you paid for dinner? He hesitated. Thought so. She's using you. The affair establishes grounds for divorce. The expensive lifestyle you provide, dinners, hotels, gifts, establishes that she needs alimony to maintain her standard of living. You're a prop in her legal strategy. You're full of it, he said, but uncertainty bled through. Ask her about Patricia Kensington, her divorce lawyer. Ask when she hired her. Then do the math on when you two fell in love. Trevor stared at me for a long moment. I could see the gears turning, the pieces clicking into place. This conversation is done, he said finally, moving toward his car. One more thing, I called. The house you're helping her steal from me, it's underwater. Refinanced twice. Needs $40,000 in foundation work. You think she's a prize, Trevor? She's a liability. He drove away without responding, tires squealing slightly on the asphalt. I didn't feel good about the confrontation, but I felt something. A small, cold satisfaction that I'd planted doubt. That evening, my burner phone buzzed. Corrigan. Your wife just had a meltdown at Nichols's condo. 30 minutes, lots of shouting, windows open, neighbors noticed. What happened? I texted back. Don't know specifics, but she left crying. He didn't follow. I smiled despite myself. Oakes called the next morning. What did you do? Had a conversation. With Nichols? David, I told you. He came to me, I interrupted. Showed up at my work trying to negotiate my surrender. I corrected some misinformation. Silence. Then. What kind of misinformation? Timeline issues, financial realities, the fact that Rebecca's been lying to both of us. More silence. Did you threaten him? No. Record the conversation? No. It was verbal. Casual. I paused. But I may have mentioned that GPS tracking and surveillance photos exist, that his expensive lifestyle is being used to calculate alimony against me, that he's a mark, not a romance. Oakes actually laughed. You're a piece of work. Is that a problem? Only if he files harassment charges. But he won't. How do you know? Because everything you told him is true, and true things tend to haunt people. Papers rustled on his end. Rebecca called Kensington 3 times yesterday. Her lawyer called me once. They want to negotiate. Already? You rattled them. The evidence is airtight, Nichols is having doubts, and Rebecca realizes she's not holding the cards she thought she was. He paused. Here's where you need to decide. Do you want to settle, or do you want to destroy her? What's the difference? Settlement means she walks away with something, 40% of assets maybe, no alimony, quick resolution. Destruction means we take her to trial, expose every lie, drag it out for months. She gets less, but it costs more in legal fees and emotional energy. I thought about Rebecca in the kitchen, reading those divorce papers, her face transforming from shock to rage, the way she'd immediately run to Trevor, the way she still thought she could win. I want her to know she lost, I said. Then we go to trial, Oakes replied. But be prepared. This gets ugly from here. It did. Rebecca filed a restraining order claiming I was stalking and harassing her. Kensington painted me as volatile, potentially dangerous, citing the surveillance as evidence of obsessive behavior. The judge reviewed the evidence, saw that I'd hired a licensed investigator and never personally followed or contacted Rebecca, and dismissed it. But the attempt was documented, calculated, mean. She changed the locks on the house while I was at work. I had to get a police escort to retrieve my belongings. The cops were sympathetic but professional. One of them muttered, "Seen this before, man. Sorry." I moved into a furnished apartment near my building. Sparse, temporary. It felt like penance, though I wasn't sure for what. Rebecca's lawyer filed motions claiming I'd hidden assets, manipulated finances, coerced Rebecca into staying silent about marital problems. All lies, all refuted by documentation. But they had to be refuted, which meant time and money and endless meetings with Oakes. She's throwing everything at the wall, hoping something sticks, Oakes said during one particularly long session. Standard Kensington playbook. We just keep batting it down. How much longer? Court date is set for 6 weeks from now. Between now and then, expect more of this. Accusations, motions, drama. I went home to my empty apartment and sat in silence. The burner phone buzzed. Corrigan. She's meeting with a new guy. Lunch today. Want me to follow up? No, I texted back. Case is almost over. Send me final billing. I was done being the detective in my own life. 3 days later, Trevor Nichols called me. I almost didn't answer. What? I said flatly. I need to know something. His voice was different, smaller. Did Rebecca really hire her lawyer before we got together? Yes. How do you know? Dated documentation, meeting logs, her lawyer bills by the hour. Everything's time-stamped. He breathed heavily into the phone. She told me you were abusive, that I was rescuing her. And now? Now I think I just... Welcome to the club, I said. I broke up with her, he continued. Last week. She didn't take it well. I imagine not. She threatened me, said she'd sue me for something. I don't even know what. My lawyer says she has no case, but... He trailed off. Look, I know I'm not the victim here. I knew she was married. I should have walked away. But I thought... You thought you were special, I finished. Different from the boring husband, the one who deserved her. Silence. Trevor, I said, you weren't special, you were convenient, and now you're not. Move on. I hung up. That night, Rebecca called. First time since she'd been served. Hello? I answered. You turned him against me, she said. No preamble, just accusation. I told him the truth. You sabotaged my relationship because you can't handle that I'm happy. You're not happy, I said. You're desperate, and you're losing. This isn't over. It is. You just don't want to accept it. I looked around my sparse apartment. You wanted the house, the assets, the victory, but you got sloppy. You underestimated me, and now you're paying for it. I'll see you in court, she spat. Looking forward to it. She hung up. 4 weeks until trial. 4 weeks of silence from Rebecca. 4 weeks of Oakes preparing our case like a surgeon sharpening scalpels. We're going to win, he said during our final prep meeting. I just want you to understand what that looks like. She'll leave with almost nothing. Maybe 30% of assets if the judge is feeling generous. No alimony, no house, her reputation in tatters because all of this becomes public record. Good, I said. David. Oakes leaned forward. Winning doesn't always feel like you think it will. When this is over, you'll still be divorced. Still living in that apartment. Still dealing with the fact that someone you loved betrayed you. The victory is real, but it doesn't erase the pain. I know, I said. But at least she doesn't get to win. He nodded slowly. Then let's finish this. The call came on a Wednesday evening, while I was replacing a thermostat in Unit 4B. Rebecca's number. I stared at it for 3 rings before answering. What? I said. We need to talk. In person. Her voice was different. Tired. Almost fragile. Tell your lawyer. Not about the case. About us. Please, David. One conversation. I almost refused. Oakes would have told me to refuse, but something in her tone made me curious. Where? I asked. The house. Tomorrow night. 7 o'clock. Our house, where she'd changed the locks to keep me out. Fine, I said. I hung up and immediately called Oakes. Don't go, he said flatly. It's a trap. She'll record you saying something she can use in court, or worse, claim you threatened her. I'm going anyway. Then record it yourself. Your phone, voice memo, running the entire time, and text me the address when you arrive so I know where you are if something goes wrong. You think she'd... I think desperate people do desperate things, Oakes said, and your wife is very, very desperate. The next evening, I drove to the house I'd bought 14 years ago. The grass needed cutting. I used to do that every Sunday. Now it was overgrown, wild. I parked in the driveway and sat for a moment, looking at the structure. Red brick, white trim, the front porch where we'd sat summer evenings drinking wine and talking about futures that never materialized. I texted Oakes the address, activated my phone's voice recorder, slipped it into my jacket pocket, and walked to the door. Rebecca answered before I could knock. She looked thinner, older. Makeup couldn't quite hide the dark circles under her eyes. Thank you for coming, she said quietly. What do you want, Rebecca? She stepped aside. Come in. The house smelled the same, looked the same. My absence hadn't changed the physical space, just proved how easily I could be erased from it. We sat in the living room on furniture we'd picked out together, the couch where we'd watched movies, the coffee table we'd assembled drunk on cheap wine, laughing at the incomprehensible instructions. I've been thinking, Rebecca began, about everything that's happened, how we got here. You got here, I corrected. I just responded. She flinched. I know you're angry. I'm not angry. I'm done. Just listen, please. She twisted her hands together. The thing with Trevor, it was a mistake. A moment of weakness when I was feeling unappreciated and... Stop, I interrupted. Don't do that. Don't rewrite history to make yourself the victim. I'm not... You planned this. The affair, the lawyer, the house transfer scheme. You were strategic, calculating. I leaned back. You weren't weak, Rebecca. You were predatory. Her expression hardened. Fine. You want honesty? I'll give you honesty. This marriage broke up many years ago. You stopped trying, stopped growing. I looked at you and saw someone who'd given up on being anything more than a building manager. There it is, I said softly. I needed more. I deserved more. So you took it, behind my back, while smiling at me over breakfast, while sleeping in our bed, while planning how to take the one asset I had left. The house should be mine, she said, voice rising. I make more money. I can actually afford it alone. You'd lose it in 6 months. Maybe, but it's still half mine. She stood abruptly, pacing. This is exactly why we're in court. You're being spiteful, holding on to things out of ego instead of being practical. You think this is about the house? I stood too. Rebecca, I'd have given you the house. I'd have walked away with nothing if you'd just been honest. If you'd sat me down and said, I'm unhappy, I want a divorce. Let's end this with dignity. But you didn't do that. Because I knew you'd fight me. I would have let you go, I said. But you couldn't risk that. Couldn't risk me being reasonable, because then you couldn't play victim, couldn't justify the affair, couldn't convince yourself that I deserved what you did to me. She stopped pacing. You hired someone to stalk me. I hired someone to document your lies. You manipulated Trevor? I told Trevor the truth about your timeline. That threatened your narrative. You're trying to ruin me, she said, voice breaking. Take everything, leave me with nothing. Now you know how it feels. The silence that followed was broken only by the sound of the refrigerator humming in the kitchen. Our refrigerator, the one I'd replaced 2 years ago when the old one gave out. I didn't come here to fight, Rebecca said finally. Her voice shifted, softer, strategic. I came here to propose something. I'm listening. She moved to the dining table, pulled out a folder, the same kind she'd had when she tried to get me to sign the quitclaim deed. I'll drop all the motions, she said, all the accusations. We'll settle quietly. I get the house and 60% of other assets. You get the rest. Clean break. No trial. 60%, I repeated. It's fair considering my income. Your lawyer told you the trial is going badly, I said. That's why you're here. Not for reconciliation or negotiation. You're trying to salvage what you can before a judge rules against you. Her jaw tightened. Oakes is overconfident. Juries are unpredictable. We're not going to a jury. It's a bench trial, just a judge. And judges don't care about your income or your feelings. They care about evidence and law. You can't know how it'll go. I know you committed adultery. That affects asset division. I know you tried to defraud me out of the house through coercion. I know you filed a false restraining order. I know everything, Rebecca, because I documented everything. She stared at the folder in her hands, then at me, really looked at me, maybe for the first time in years. When did you become this? She whispered. When I had to, I replied. She set the folder down slowly. What if I told you I still love you? I'd say you're lying. What if I'm not? Then you have a strange way of showing love. She walked toward me, stopped close enough that I could smell her perfume. The same one she'd worn on our wedding day. Weaponized nostalgia. We could start over, she said quietly. Counseling, therapy. Really try this time. No. David, you don't love me. You love the idea of not losing, but you already lost. The moment you chose to lie instead of leave with honesty. Her hand moved toward my face. I stepped back. Don't, I said. I'm trying. You're trying to manipulate me, huh? Same as always. But I'm not who I was 6 weeks ago. I moved toward the door. I keep your folder. Take it to court. Let the judge decide. Wait. Her voice cracked. Please. I'm begging you. I stopped, hand on the doorknob. For what? Mercy. Compassion. 14 years of marriage has to count for something. I looked back at her, at the woman I'd loved, the stranger she'd become. It did count, I said, right up until you decided it didn't. I opened the door. David. I turned one last time. She stood in the middle of our living room, surrounded by furniture and memories and the ruins of a life she'd systematically destroyed. Sign the house over to me, she said desperately. Or I'm leaving tonight, For good. I'll take whatever I can and disappear. You'll never see me again. I almost laughed. The threat was supposed to hurt, supposed to scare me into compliance. It didn't. I reached into my jacket pocket, pulled out the divorce papers I'd been carrying for 3 weeks, placed them on the table next to her folder. "Let me get a pen," I said. Her face lit up. She thought she'd won, thought I was going to sign her documents. Instead, I flipped to the signature page on my divorce filing, already signed by me, awaiting her signature. "These need your signature too," I said, "for them to be final." She picked them up with shaking hands. Started reading. Her expression changed as she got to the evidence section. Photos, dates, times, locations, GPS data, witness statements, hotel records, all of it. "The private investigator's report is attached," I said, "along with financial records showing your attempts at asset concealment and documentation of your false restraining order." She flipped through pages, faster now, desperate. "Your bags are already packed," I said quietly, "but not for the reason you planned." She looked up, tears streaming down her face. "You're enjoying this." "No," I said honestly. "I'm not. This doesn't feel good, Rebecca. It feels necessary." "I'll fight this. You'll lose. You know it. Your lawyer knows it. That's why you're here making last-minute deals." I moved toward the door again. "See you in court." "David, please." I closed the door behind me. Sat in my truck for a moment, listening to my own breathing. Then I drove away from the house for the last time. The trial lasted 3 days. Rebecca's lawyer tried everything: character attacks, emotional appeals, procedural delays. Oakes dismantled each attempt with surgical precision. On day 1, he entered the surveillance evidence, photos of Rebecca and Trevor, hotel records, credit card statements. The judge, a woman in her 60s named Patricia Valdez, examined each document without expression. Kensington objected repeatedly. "Your Honor, this evidence was obtained through invasive means." "Licensed private investigator operating within legal boundaries," Judge Valdez said. Overruled. Rebecca sat at the defendant's table looking smaller than I'd ever seen her. Trevor wasn't there. He'd refused to testify, citing his Fifth Amendment rights through his own lawyer. Smart man, too late, but smart. On day 2, Kensington called character witnesses. Rebecca's co-workers testified about her dedication, professionalism, community involvement. One mentioned my controlling behavior and emotional unavailability. Oakes cross-examined each one. "Did you ever witness Mr. Townsend physically threaten Mrs. Townsend?" "No." "Verbally threaten?" "No." "Did Mrs. Townsend ever mention feeling unsafe at home?" "She said she felt unappreciated." "Unappreciated," Oakes repeated. "Not unsafe, not threatened, unappreciated." "Well, yes." No further questions. Rebecca took the stand on day 3. Kensington led her through a prepared narrative. Unfulfilling marriage, emotional distance. The affair was a mistake born from loneliness. Then Oakes stood for cross-examination. "Mrs. Townsend, when did you hire Patricia Kensington as your divorce attorney?" Rebecca hesitated. "I don't recall exactly." "Let me help you remember." He showed her the billing records. "February 14th, 3 months before you were served divorce papers, 2 months before your husband hired an investigator. Does that refresh your memory?" "I was exploring options. You were planning a divorce while still living with your husband, sharing his bed, accepting his financial support, correct?" "It wasn't like that." "When did your relationship with Trevor Nichols begin?" "March. 1 month after hiring a divorce lawyer. Convenient timing." "It wasn't planned." "You told Mr. Townsend you wanted him to sign over the house. When was that?" "April, I think." 2 weeks before he filed for divorce. You attempted to coerce him into surrendering his only significant asset while planning to leave him. Is that accurate?" Rebecca's lawyer objected. Judge Valdez overruled. "I wanted to protect—" "You filed a restraining order claiming Mr. Townsend stalked and harassed you. Was that true?" "I felt threatened." "Yes or no, Mrs. Townsend? Did your husband ever stalk you?" "No." "Did he harass you?" "Not directly, but yes or no?" "No." No further questions. Rebecca stepped down, looking gutted. Kensington tried to rehabilitate her testimony with closing arguments about emotional complexity and marriage being complicated, but it rang hollow against the mountain of evidence. Judge Valdez took 2 hours to deliberate. When she returned, her expression was stone. "I've reviewed all evidence and testimony," she began. "This is a clear case of adultery, attempted asset fraud, and bad faith legal maneuvering. Mrs. Townsend engaged in a calculated effort to maximize her financial position at the expense of her spouse while maintaining a facade of marital normalcy. Rebecca's face crumpled. Mr. Townsend is awarded the marital home and 65% of all shared assets. Mrs. Townsend's request for alimony is denied. Her request for attorney's fees is denied. Both parties are responsible for their own legal costs. Kensington started to object. Judge Valdez cut her off. Mrs. Townsend, you came into my courtroom expecting sympathy. Instead, you demonstrated a pattern of deception that undermines the integrity of these proceedings. Consider yourself fortunate I'm not pursuing perjury charges for your restraining order claims. The gavel came down. It was over. Rebecca sat frozen at her table. I stood, shook Oakes's hand, and walked out of the courtroom without looking back. But I wasn't done yet. Trevor Nichols needed to understand something. I found him 3 days after the trial at his office building. He was leaving for lunch, same routine Corrigan had documented. I stepped out of my truck as he approached his Porsche. "Trevor," I called. He turned, saw me, and his expression shifted to something between fear and resignation. "What do you want?" "A conversation. 5 minutes." I'm not here to fight. Just talk." He studied me, calculating risk, finally nodded. 5 minutes. We stood in the parking structure, concrete and fluorescent lights, and the echo of our voices. "Rebecca lost the trial," I said. "I know. She called me. I didn't answer." "Smart. She'll keep calling, trying to reconnect. Probably tell you it was my fault, that I sabotaged you both." "What do you want me to say?" "Nothing. I want you to understand something." I stepped closer. "You weren't the first. You won't be the last. Rebecca doesn't know how to be alone. She jumps from one relationship to the next, always looking for someone to validate her, to make her feel special. I don't care. You should, because the pattern doesn't stop. She'll do to the next guy what she did to me, what she did to you. She'll lie, manipulate, take what she needs, and move on." Trevor's jaw clenched. "Why are you telling me this?" "Because you helped destroy my marriage. Knowingly. Willingly. You saw a married woman and pursued her anyway because you thought you were different, special, the exception. I'm not going back to her. I know, but I needed you to hear this from someone who lived it." I pulled something from my pocket. A manila envelope. "This is every photo, every piece of evidence, every document from the case. All of it." I handed it to him. He took it reflexively. "What am I supposed to do with this?" "Keep it. Burn it. I don't care. But if Rebecca ever tries to come back into your life, if she ever tells you I was the villain in this story, open that envelope and remember the truth." Trevor looked at the envelope, then at me. "You really loved her, didn't you?" "I loved who I thought she was," I said. "Turns out that person never existed." I turned to walk away. "Hey," Trevor called. I stopped. "For what it's worth," he said quietly. "I'm sorry. I knew it was wrong. I did it anyway. That's on me." I looked back at him. "Yeah, it is." I got in my truck and drove away. 1 week later, Rebecca called from an unknown number. I answered out of curiosity. "What do you want?" I asked. "I'm leaving the city," she said. Her voice was flat, defeated. "Moving to Seattle. Fresh start." "Good luck." "David, She paused. "I need to know. Was any of it real? Did you ever actually love me?" "Every day for 14 years, I said. "Right up until you decided I wasn't worth the effort." "I'm sorry." "No, you're not. You're sorry you lost. That's different." Silence. "Goodbye, Rebecca." "Goodbye." I hung up and blocked the number. That evening, I sat in my apartment with a beer I didn't drink, looking at the divorce decree signed by Judge Valdez. The house was mine. The assets were mine. The victory was complete. But Oakes had been right. Winning didn't erase the pain, didn't undo the betrayal, didn't give me back the years I'd spent building something with someone who was actively tearing it down. I looked at my reflection in the darkened window, saw a man who'd fought and won and become something harder in the process, the underdog who'd learned to bite back, the husband who'd become the villain. I raised the beer bottle in a silent toast to nobody. Then I poured it down the sink, turned off the lights, and went to bed.